Hey y'all, I'm Justin McBrayer, and here today we're going to talk about how to balance authenticity and aesthetics, production value, and genuine, meaningful content. But before I get into this, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more content like this. Drop a comment down below of other questions or tutorials or how'd you do that you'd like me to address. So let's get into it. One of my communication expert colleagues asked me recently, how do you balance authentic, meaningful content with production value? And this is a great question, and it's one that I want to get into a little bit here in three different categories: personal, pastoral, and future-looking thoughts. So, for me personally, the visual medium of storytelling through the camera lens is vitally important, and how a shot is composed, framed, lighted, audio editing, all of that have a significant impact upon the story we are telling. So for me personally, I'm always seeking to learn new and increasingly powerful means to tell these stories visually. In certain genres of film, they have certain sort of norms. Think about like documentaries with a verite or a real-life, authentic feel, sort of the jittery over-anxiousness of soap operas, or maybe even romantic films with their smooth motion and dreamy, haze-like filters with the lenses and nice, soft lights. Even vlogs have certain norms as to how something is filmed and experienced by the audience or the viewer. But sometimes the actual filming of something, or my goal of filming something to a high standard, can often backfire and squash the creative process or make you feel nervous when you're delivering it, and that detracts from what you're trying to do. Often I lose a small amount of precious time that I have for a project in the details of a certain shot or look. Not to mention how gear can simply take over our minds, our times, and our pocketbooks. It's difficult to resist the sense of needing the latest, greatest pieces of gear and technology in order to convey our messages, but we don't always have to have those things. The way by which we tell the story is sometimes the actual story, but we don't need the camera or the way we're telling it to get in the way. Now, it's not the gear that makes a story or storyteller successful, but rather the planning out of the content and how you film it. So for me personally, it's fun to experiment with different styles of filming, even to try and mimic other artists or other YouTubers in both the filming and editing in order to learn new techniques, or even just to see if I can replicate that or learn from another style of how someone tells a story visually. However, the way it looks and sounds and feels matters a lot to me. If you're capable of a certain high-quality work or standard, or aspire to that level of work, then it needs to be at those standards. What you produce needs to meet those standards. It's difficult to balance authenticity with aesthetics, and, like many forms of content creation, from writing sermons and various kinds of art and storytelling, it is important to understand that video work and cinematography will take up all the time you offer it, and ask for more. So, there is an important balance between time, aesthetics, authenticity, and the return on our investment of that time in those activities. I often experiment with different styles and techniques and types of contents as a way to approach storytelling from a new perspective, and also to exercise different skills and thought processes. A few weeks ago, I filmed a talk for an online conference. In the process of experimenting to create that video, I also was able to explore the lighting, the composition, and the setting for how I now plan to film for the season of Lent here at Oak Grove that we plan to use for our traditional worship services. And so in working through that new mode, method, aesthetic of authentic storytelling, I was able to find a new perspective and a new setting, a new visual medium for telling stories in the coming season at my local church. And so that brings me to professionally. In my work, what I call church cinematography, the production value matters a good deal as well. We have high standards at Oak Grove in our church and our teams, and our staff work diligently to create meaningful music and worship experiences, as well as other messages and content we create, with a high production value for nearly everything we create. And it is also important to have priority placed on participation from lay people and church members and other staff at home who may not have the same level of equipment or expertise. Now, on the scale of participation versus performance, we're heavily biased in the church world, and ought to be, towards participation. The videos that are sent in by our awesome church members for the call to worship, the offertory prayer, the affirmation of faith, or the things that our musicians and volunteers from the band to traditional music elements are some of my favorite parts of worship, because they're an authentic, personal sharing of why folks love Oak Grove, and they offer their gifts in leading the worship services each week. Much of the best content of the internet may not have the highest production value, but the content is both genuine and meaningful. So it may not have the best cameras or lights or slick editing to awesome music, but the best things on the internet will be the best told and most compelling stories. In looking towards the future and now, every church now has multiple campuses, both an in-person and also now an online part of their congregation. I'm excited to say that our church has had members joining the church even distanced through online services by either filming those folks joining or having babies baptized by filming with our pastors at safe distances, even with the families pouring the water on the babies while the pastor says, "I baptize you in the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit." Even this past week, we had church members join through Zoom. I mean, everything else is happening online these days for safety, so why not church membership? I'm excited about the potential opportunities of how divine love is at work in the world to welcome new folks into a sense of belonging and connection, to spur us on towards greater inclusion of those who are left out and a greater sense of the movement of God's preferred future in the world today. This is the new way for pastoring in a post-COVID and currently COVID world. And it will be vitally important to have this ministry mode of digital pastoring to continue long after the pandemic has subsided. And so we need to continue streaming worship online, creating meaningful content, and having places for people to engage online in mission and discipleship and worship. And so I want to hear from you. How are you dealing with this need for authentic communication and aesthetically pleasing high production value? So drop a comment down below or shoot me an email to let me know how you deal with this tension of participation and performance or authenticity and aesthetics. And where do you see this headed for church and community and the world? So I hope you found this video helpful, and if you did, please like it and be sure to subscribe for more videos like this. Leave a comment down below of other things or questions you'd like to see here on this channel. I'm Joseph McBrayer, and I'll see you in the next video. Peace.